Hey everyone, it's B here with another episode of In Your Feelings, a podcast from Thought Catalog and I, where we dive into the very real, very human emotions that we're all dealing with as we navigate life and our journeys throughout it. We talk about moving on, relationships, breakups, careers, etc., etc. Everything is an extension of the articles that we have on our website and the messages that we receive from all of you. We're just trying to dive into as many conversations and as many topics that you're asking us to so that we can show you that you aren't alone in what you're feeling and other people are going through it and other people get it. So today, for example, is going to be an episode related to anxiety. And instead of getting into explaining anxiety and affirmations for someone dealing with anxiety, the first episode on this mental health topic that I wanted to get into was how to love someone if they have anxiety. I get a lot of messages from people on Instagram and through email, and Thought Catalog gets a lot of DMs as well from people who are dealing with anxiety and people who are just trying to work out their thoughts and feel worthy and valued within their mental health illness. Anxiety is something that, in the USA alone, 40 million people are dealing with. We have all experienced anxious thoughts and worrisome thoughts and thoughts that kind of like take over our mind, or panic attacks on some end of the spectrum. But if you've been clinically diagnosed with anxiety, you know what it's like to have severe symptoms. Everything is a fight or flight response, and that can make everyday living really difficult. And within that, it can make relationships really difficult. I get so many people reaching out to me saying that they wish people knew how to love them through their panic attacks or through their irrational thoughts. And I say that with finger quotes because, maybe to the outside world, those thoughts are irrational, but to someone with anxiety, it's just what their mind leaps towards. And so I wanted to create this episode, not necessarily around reminders for people who are dealing with anxiety. That will be an episode, but not this one. I wanted to create an episode that could act as a resource for the partners of the people who are dealing with anxiety, for the people who are in these relationships who may not necessarily understand what it's like, because how could you if you haven't actually experienced it? And then I also wanted to create that resource for people who do have anxiety. So instead of, maybe needing to explain yourself a lot or, put your thoughts into words, this could act as a resource that you could give someone and say, hey, this is kind of how my mind works, and this is kind of how I'd love for you to approach me when I am, overthinking or dealing with everything that's inside of my head. So that's the goal of this podcast, and I've written out a few little reminders that I think have helped me and have helped me communicate my needs when I am going through things along those lines. So, I really hope that they help you as well. So I guess my first reminder for anyone who is in a relationship with someone who has anxiety, or anyone who just cares deeply for someone who is processing all of those thoughts and emotions in their everyday lives, is just to try to remind yourself that those people in your life feel like a burden, and their anxiety often makes them feel like they're hard to love, which is really, really sad. And love, in relation to many other things, can really help someone with anxiety. It can be really helpful to have someone there who is just willing to learn and grow within a relationship and really be like a shoulder to lean on when you're dealing with hardship. However, for that person, it can be really hard to love someone with anxiety. Can be very deeply emotionally taxing if you don't know how to set boundaries and if you don't fully understand how to approach the situation. So my first point is I would try your best to educate yourself. Find as many resources as you possibly can in relation to this mental health illness. Make sure that you are reading books and listening to podcasts and having genuine conversations with the person that you're with, and building that communication and building that trust. Because, not only are outside sources really, really incredible wealths of knowledge, but the person you're with is the best person to be communicating with. They're going to tell you how you can love them in the right way. So I would ask them questions, and I would learn about them, and I would, dive into everything with them. Because when you can start to learn about someone's triggers, or about, the things that help to calm someone when they are having a panic attack or anything along those lines, you can better approach it when it arises, and you can even start to see when it's going to happen. So you can kind of get ahead of it, and you can kind of be there for them. And that comes from genuinely just seeing someone on that level. As a partner, if you don't deal with irrational thoughts, or if you don't deal with, a mind that is constantly racing, or the tightness in your chest that just starts overcoming you when you go out into a social situation, you don't often notice those markers. And so you have to communicate, and you have to educate yourself, and you really have to do the work to get to the bottom of this person on a very, very personal level, to understand what it is within their soul that needs helping, and how to do that in a tangible way. It is really important to learn how to be a safe place for someone with anxiety, not just within your physical presence, but in the way that you react to their anxiety. So I think as very reactionary human beings, it can be easy, especially when you don't necessarily get or experience what someone is going through. It can be very easy to say things like, oh, just chill out, or just relax, or you're overthinking. And while that might seem like a very like just an easy thing to throw out there when you are talking to your partner, it can be very isolating for them. It can make them feel really bad about the way that they exist in the world. Because people with anxiety, they know that their thoughts are irrational at times. They know that their mind gets ahead of them. They know that they're having, physical panic symptoms in relation to things that aren't actually going to cause them distress in life, but it does. They are dealing with very physical symptoms that you may not even see. So to just tell someone to chill when they're dealing with all of that heaviness and all of that reaction can make them feel really weak and out of control, and like they don't have any comprehension of how to just be normal in the world. And, we know that, what even is normal, but that's the way people with anxiety think. They think that they don't know how to approach their mind. They feel like they don't have any ability to ground themselves or to be their own foundation. And they know that that can be a burden on those they love. And so as someone who is a partner for someone with anxiety, I would just say be really self-aware and really mindful of your words and the language that you use and the way that you react when they're having a panic attack, or when they do ask you, if they can cancel plans with you because they just can't physically or emotionally or mentally deal with the thought of going out that night. I would be really mindful of the way that you are communicating with them, because you want to be a place of solace for these human beings. You don't want to add any more stress into their lives. You don't want to make them feel isolated or minimized or judged or weak for who they are and for something that they genuinely just can't control. You want to be the complete opposite of that. You want to make them feel seen and held, and it's like it's okay to be who they are, that you accept them for who they are. I think when you love someone who has anxiety, the best thing you can do is to just be present with them. When they do approach you telling you that they are having a hard anxiety day, or that they're, dealing with really anxious thoughts, or that they are having a panicked moment, just sit them down and be the person who listens. Sometimes that is truly all you need. And sometimes that's truly all someone wants. You don't have to fix things. You don't have to, heal this person. That's like the last thing that they need. Sometimes they just need to be sat down, and you need to like put your hand on their leg and like wrap them in a big hug and just let them know that they're okay and that they're loved, and that you don't judge them for the way that their mind shows up in this world. When you love someone with anxiety, make sure that they know that you're going to stay. Make sure that they know that you are going to try your hardest to understand where they're coming from, that you're going to try your hardest to be as present as possible with them when they're dealing with things. Because sometimes all it takes is just having someone by your side. Truly, sometimes that can be the most grounding, most beautiful, most comforting thing another human being can do for you when you are dealing with really irrational fears and really chaotic thoughts. Sometimes you need that grounding force, and that grounding force should exist within nothing but presence, genuine presence. So if you love someone with anxiety, please just learn how to be present with them. Let them talk. Let them tell you everything going on in their mind. Let them communicate with you. Tell them that there is a safe place for them to leap into everything, even like the darkest corners of their mind. Let them know that you're there to shine a light into them, because that's what they need to hear sometimes. And I understand how emotionally taxing opening up that kind of space can be for another human being, especially as someone who is dealing with so much in their own life. I understand that there are frustrating moments when you love someone who has a mental health illness like anxiety. It can be really difficult to, think that you're going out to a work party with someone and to have them cancel last minute. It can be really difficult to want to do amazing, incredible things with someone who doesn't have the capacity to do them with you sometimes. If you love someone, you want to spend time with them. You want to experience the world with them. And sometimes mental health illnesses don't allow someone to show up within their eagerness to do that as well. And so when those frustrating or heavy moments do come up in your relationship, I would try to remind yourself that it's not personal, that it's not the person you're dealing with, but you're dealing with their mental illness. That person wants to do everything in the world with you. Someone with anxiety wants to love you the way that you deserve to be loved, and they want to show up for you the way that you deserve to be shown up for, but sometimes they just can't get there. And that's not them as the physical person who stands in front of you. That's everything going on inside of them. And so I would really take the time to remind yourself that their actions aren't personal, and that you are loved, and that there will be frustrating moments, but that you can't take them out on your partner. You kind of have to come at them from an empathetic point of view, and you kind of have to find that empathy within their vulnerability and their ability to say, I can't do this right now. You really have to learn how to meet someone there. As hard as it can be, it's really, really important. But relative to that, I want to remind you to just celebrate all of the small wins that you have with your partner if they do have anxiety, because there will be small wins. And if someone is taking the steps to recover or work through their thoughts, or really, really take the time to go to therapy or anything along those lines, things are going to start getting better, or they are going to start learning how to deal with everything that is going on within them. So I would be very aware of the moments that they do try. Because people with anxiety want to love you so hard, and they will try. They will try to show up. They will try to go to the party. They will try to do all the things possible with you. And I would be really mindful of the steps that they've taken throughout the years you've been together or throughout the time that you've known them. Because maybe a year ago, your partner wasn't even able to come to the mall with you, and now they can. Or maybe 6 months ago, a dinner would give them such severe anxiety that you would have to go home, but now they can do that. Always, always, always celebrate those wins and remind yourself of them. And remind yourself that someone with anxiety is genuinely, your partner is genuinely trying their best for you because they love you. And these wins can literally be the smallest, most nameless things. It could be the courage to answer the phone in the morning or your phone call. It can be the courage to get out of bed on a really, really hard day where their mind is racing and they just can't put a thought together. It doesn't have to be these giant leaps forward. Sometimes the smallest things help to show us that someone is genuinely trying for us. And that can be really affirming as a partner. That can be really nice to remind yourself of if you don't necessarily know where someone with anxiety is coming from in your life. And if you can sometimes take, their canceling plans or anything along those lines personally, I'd remind yourself of all of the times that they were able to show up despite their mental health illness, and find a lot of joy in that. Just celebrate what they are and how they're showing up versus what they struggle with. That doesn't have to be the topic of conversation all of the time. You should really celebrate the small wins with your person and with your partner, because I promise that is the most encouraging thing for them as well on their road to recovery. And it'll make them want to try more, and it'll make them realize that they can show up and that they are capable and that they are making steps towards dealing with something that is really hard and heavy in their life. And that is so unbelievably motivating. And speaking of motivation, I think it is really important to learn how to reframe the way that you approach someone when they are dealing with something. I would really focus on having a lot of positive affirmations for them, something that they can remind themselves of when they're going through a difficult day or time or period in their life. So instead of asking questions and saying, "Are you okay? What can I do?" Things that just have to make them think more or communicate in a moment where they simply just can't. Try to have an affirmation like, how can I make you feel loved right now? Or even, it's okay to not be okay right now, but it's going to get better. Or even, you've felt this way before and you have survived this. So you see how that's really different than asking a question or needing to make them this integral part of fixing the scenario. It's more about encouraging them to just feel what they are feeling right now. And it's really just about showing them that you're there for them, but also giving them something to remind themselves of. So when you say, "You've dealt with this before, you can do this," they think, "I can do this, I've dealt with this before." And if they just focus on that until the feeling passes, the panic, the irrational thoughts, or whatever they're dealing with, that can be a lifesaver. That can truly, truly help to anchor someone and ground them and calm them, because those positive affirmations become the focus of what's at the front of their mind versus the irrational thoughts that were causing them to need them. And within those affirmations, I would try your best to make sure that, when you are dealing with a partner who has anxiety, just make them know you're a team, that you're in this together. Someone with anxiety already feels really isolated and alone in the way that they show up in the world. Someone with anxiety often feels weak or silly or not in control of what they're dealing with. And so to be loved and to be held and to be cared for and to not be minimized or judged, to not feel like a burden is it's just so freeing. And sometimes those like very specific statements can cause a lot of calm in an otherwise really difficult situation. So try to say things like, we'll get through this together, or we'll figure out what to do next. Anything along those lines that really, really affirms that you see someone for what they're dealing with, but that you are not resenting them or judging them or criticizing them for what they're dealing with, but rather you are planting your feet in front of them, looking at them and saying, I love you here. I love this version of you, and it's okay because I'm going to hold your hand and we are going to get through this together. That is huge, and that is what every single person with anxiety needs to hear, especially in romantic relationships or friendships, because it can be, when you deal with anxiety, you can kind of start convincing yourself that you just don't want to burden the people in your life. You kind of stop communicating. You kind of stop thinking that you're on a team. Anxiety really does make you feel like you're hard to love. Anxiety really does make you feel like you have to apologize for what you're going through. And that can be an extremely lonely place to be in your mind. It can really convince you that you have no one on your side. So if you are someone who loves a person who is dealing with anxiety, just make sure that they know that you're in it together, that you're a team. All right, so we've gone through a lot of different affirmations, different ways we can reframe our thinking if we are in a partnership or a relationship or a friendship, or we have a family member who is dealing with anxiety. But I also just want to speak to you, if you love someone with a mental health illness, I also know how difficult that can be, how taxing it can be on like a human soul. And I want to remind you to take care of yourself too. Try to ensure that you have a good self-care routine. Try to ensure that you have a life outside of the relationship, that there isn't codependency there, that you have the capacity to do things that ignite you and that fill you with passion and that bring you back home to yourself. Because it's so important when you are dealing with such an energetic relationship to replenish your energy stores, because they really can be depleted. When you are constantly empathizing and being vulnerable and trying to fix and mend and help someone, it can be very depleting emotionally. And you have to make sure that you set boundaries with yourself and with the person you're with. And if you're, wondering what a boundary is, for example, I know how easy it is to say, like, take a step back, take a beat. But when you have someone who is genuinely going through so much in front of you, if you're an empathetic human being, it can be really hard not to want to fix and just take care of everything and to kind of tear yourself down in order to build another person up. And so when I say try to have boundaries, I mean genuinely understand the way that you are feeling within a situation. And if you have to walk away, you have to give yourself permission to do that. Boundaries are not the easiest thing to implement. Boundaries, especially as an empathetic person, aren't something that most people leap towards. I really do commend people who can just walk out of a room when someone is in need, but I think a lot of human beings are not like that. So I would learn how to communicate with your partner. Learn how to say things like, this is a lot for me right now, but if there is anything I can do in regards to getting you the help that you need at this moment, let's seek out those resources and things along those lines. So not only are you still helping them, but you're not the source of their healing. And that's like a huge aspect of setting a boundary for yourself. You should be encouraging your partner to seek help in the outside world as well. You cannot be everything for someone. You cannot do everything for someone. it's important for this person to seek therapy. It's important for this person to figure out if they need to take medication or figure out their own self-care routine. Someone with anxiety can sometimes be codependent on their partners. I know this. They can be codependent within the validation that comes from having someone who is trying so hard for them. But if you ever want to see your partner recover, there are other professional things that have to be sought out. There are other things that they need to be doing in order to be digging into the work that has to be done. And that is a huge boundary that you have to set. You cannot be the whole universe and the end all be all for this person. You need to be your own person as well. All right, so all of those tips are hopefully really helpful for you if you are a partner to someone with anxiety. And then if you are someone with anxiety, I really, really hope that you can listen to this and use this as a resource and send it to your friends and send it to your partner, so that they might gain a little insight into what you deal with or gain a little insight into how to approach you. But I also hope that it makes you feel understood. And I also hope that it makes you feel seen. And, all of these tips are tips that I've learned throughout navigating these kinds of relationships in my life. And they're tips that I really wish my partners could have, had for them. So I would feel, if you are someone dealing with this, I would feel empowered. I'm hoping you feel empowered to put this out into the world and to kind of ask for what you need from those in your life. But I would also just, to end this off on a positive note, I do just want to say that I really genuinely believe that someone with anxiety, someone who overthinks is truly someone who overloves. And you know what it is like to feel isolated, and you know what it's like to want to give so much to someone, and you know what it is like to be confused or misunderstood in the world. And so you give and you give and you give so much of yourself, and that love is really, really beautiful. And so I don't want you to feel like you're never going to find something that gets you and sees you and wants to give you the kind of softness and kindness and tenderness that you deserve, because you deserve it. And you make people feel so hopeful and so seen and so loved, and you genuinely have that coming to you as well. It exists, and you have worth and value, and you are just as deserving of it as anyone else in this world. So just a little reminder to not let your anxiety, even if it's just in this moment, convince you that you are difficult to love, or that you are unworthy of love, or that there is no one out there who is going to give you love. You are so unbelievably deserving, and it's coming. And also, the Thought Catalog app has a topics section, and anxiety is one of those topics. We have thousands and thousands and thousands of articles on anxiety and psychology and mental health illnesses that have really acted as a wealth of knowledge for a lot of people in the world. They are some of our most popular articles. And so if this podcast inspired you to do a little more research or dive deeper into the topic, you can find the Thought Catalog app in the App Store, or you can go to thoughtcatalog.com. We also write about it on our Instagram. Just know that there's more out there for you resource-wise, and we're really trying to encourage you within all of that. So thanks for being here today with us, and I hope this motivates you and acts as a great resource for you, and hope you have a great day.